Now we're going to talk about total hip precaution, which is something you need to know about when you are transferring a patient, getting them up from bed, etc. Total hip precaution is a term that is used to indicate certain restrictions on motion which have been ordered by the doctor following surgery, joint replacement surgery of the hip. We see here the pelvis and an artificial metal device which has been inserted into the bone, and that's one part of the hip that would be called the ball. There can also replace the socket in a hip, one or the other or both. In either case, total hip precaution applies for 6 to 8 weeks following surgery, and certain motions are not allowed because they can cause dislocation, and the patient will have to go back into the hospital and have that readjusted, and it's not a good experience, so you want to avoid that. So let's take a look at what's involved in observing a total hip precaution. Total hip precaution means two basic things. The patient is not allowed to bend the hip more than 90 degrees or a square, and the patient is not allowed to cross the leg over midline. Think of a line going down the middle of the body, not allowed to go this way. So let's take a look at what that means in practical terms. If the patient is sitting at 90 degrees, meaning that the thigh and the upper body are at a square to each other, then in order to get up out of the chair, most people have to lean forward to push up. So that leaning forward past 90 is what is not allowed. The only way to take care of that is to sit higher up. The bed has to be adjusted higher. The wheelchair requires a pillow or two. The bath bench, if that's being used, and the commode all have to be adjusted up higher to accommodate the total hip precaution. So, for example, may I have your pillow, please? If we take a pillow and put it on the seat, then notice my hips now are not at the square. So when I bend forward, I'm not violating that total hip precaution rule. Also, the patient's not allowed to sleep on the side, particularly the good side, because that would mean that the operated side is up top and could cross over. Some doctors do allow sleeping on the operated side. Many don't, and it has to be clearly specified whether or not that's allowed. And in that case, there should be a pillow strapped between the knees. Many times the patient will come home from the hospital with an abduction pillow between the legs right about here, and that is a Velcro pillow with Velcro straps that is placed between the thighs right here to keep them placed apart to prevent a crossing. So when you're getting a patient up with a total hip precaution, the best thing usually is to raise the front of the bed up. They're already now in the upright position. Or if it's a strong, independent person, that person wouldn't have a problem just sitting up. And you want to, so come up to a sitting position now. Then you want to guard those legs, assuming there is not a, if there is a pillow, you still should hold the legs and help the patient come around to the side. And if there is no pillow, you're still making sure the legs don't cross. So you would have your bed up high enough to prevent bending past 90 when the transfer is being made. And make sure the wheelchair has a pillow or two on it. The number of pillows required would be determined by the therapist, so you would know ahead of time how much is required. All right, that completes total hip precaution. If it is in effect, you must know about it, because everything that you do, you'll have to keep that precaution in mind. The important things to remember about total hip precaution are: 1. Do not bend at the waist more than 90 degrees. 2. To avoid this, Sit on a raised seat. 3. Do not cross the operated leg past the middle of the body. 4. Support the patient's legs when sitting up.